This is Podcast Satellite. This is Prince Handley coming to you with 100,000 watts of pure love. I've got some information today about Israel, about some of the other countries that you never hear in the mainstream media, even minor media. And I've got some good investment news for you and an investment tip, something to help you when you're investing, especially in stocks. I've got some suggestions for the nut terrorists again. And finally, I have a confidential terror alert. I'm going to tell you where the terrorists will try to strike next, and it's in the United States, 3 specific cities. I'm going to give you the exact locations. You'll never hear this anywhere. Remember, you heard it from Prince Handley, Podcast Satellite, coming to you with 100,000 watts of pure love and the news that you won't hear anywhere else. Real news. News and investments. There's an important employment report due next Friday, so lots of investors are sitting on the bench until then. However, I like to buy at times of low volume and low activity, usually lower prices. I've made over 8% with rather conservative trades in 2 weeks and an average annual percentage of over 200%. Mining, forestry, and gold indexes were up last week. However, listen to me very carefully. If you're thinking about buying gold from companies marketing on television, don't do it. The spread is too great. Your commissions going in and coming out, in other words, the combined total spread, is too great for you to profit from. What's driving the market right now is what the betting is on terms of the economy heading into the fourth quarter and into 2007, said Alec Young. In Britain, home builders and property developers may have a reason to feel very optimistic in relation to U.S. builder Toll Brothers, that's TOL on the market, who had a 19% drop in the third quarter earnings. They announced on August 22nd. British are really enjoying the housing boom there in the UK. They've seen the average price of a British home almost double in the last 5 years. However, a big caveat in the British market, since the vast majority of existing mortgages in Britain are adjustable, any rate increase will quickly impact most homeowners in their monthly payment, right in their billfold, and that could put a huge dent in their market. However, the supply versus demand ratio could end up being the biggest help for builders in the property market as a whole. In the next 20 years, in London alone, about 35,000 new householders are going to join the market each year. But the number of new homes added annually, meanwhile, is slated to increase by only half that. So, if you're in the building and home products business, the UK is the place to go this year. In comparing my investments with a well-known stock guru, just to give you an idea, over a 3-month period, his portfolio went down 0.4%, and on the NASDAQ down 7%. His choice on the Standard & Poor went down 2%, and the Dow leveled out. Also, his average annual return, his portfolio, has only been 19.14% compared to, I just told you recently in 2 weeks, I have an average annual return of 200%. And I won't go into the rest, but you need to form your own opinions. If you're listening to somebody else, you really don't have a good handle on the market. And I know some of you are very busy and you can't spend a lot of time, but you can at least look at the charts and the formation and assimilate research. Make your own decisions and keep on top of the market. Let me give you a little tip to help you, or at least what helps me. If you don't want to put all your money into one security, which isn't good, you ought to have a varied portfolio anyway. But for example, if you see 3 stocks that you're very comfortable with, then you can divide up the portion of money you want 3 ways. And you're probably, or at least my experience, I'm going to pick 2 winners out of those 3. And so I can divide that money up, and instead of buying, like, say, 75,000 of one stock, I can buy 25,000 of one, 25,000 of the second, 25,000 of the third, and monitor those closely. And so you see, you can kind of do a little hedging that way. It's not really hedging, it's actually wise. But if you're really sold on something, I just recently bought 15,000 shares of something. Today I bought a total of 12,500, 3,500 of one stock, 5,000 of another, 4,000 of another, and I did that little triple safety thing that I gave you a little tip on. So there's a little help for you, a little Prince Handley hint. Take 3 stocks that you like real well and divide what you're going to invest in the market up between the 3. Okay? But if you're really sold on one of them, why, that's up to you. As I said, I don't give you advice. I just tell you what looks good for me and what works for me. And now let's talk about Israel in the news last week. And remember previously on a blog and a podcast a week or so ago, I told you that Israel just won't listen at this time to their past performance. The terrorists never keep their word. They just want each conciliation by Israel to be another staging area for new assaults. Give the terrorists and those factions who support them land, and they will consider it one step closer to taking over Jerusalem. The land involved rightly belongs to Israel, both by past military victory and by God, who gave them the metes and bounds description in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses. And God told Abraham, he said, I'm going to give you the land all the way from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river of Euphrates, which is in Iraq, and the area of the Kenites and the Kenizzites and the Cadmonites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaim. And so we see several places in Scripture that God has marked out and defined the boundaries of the land that he has given to Israel. If the terrorists were smart, they would quit right now. Matter of fact, let me give you some advice, terrorists. You're never going to win against the God of Israel. And by the way, Syria is satisfied with Hezbollah's performance against the IDF. They're encouraging the organization to oppose its disarmament. Major General Amos Yadlin told the Knesset's Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee last Thursday that Damascus would try to recover the Golan Heights by any possible means, diplomatic or military. And they're studying the recent campaign to learn how to conduct successful operations against Israel. Hezbollah does not intend to leave the southern Lebanon area or to disarm. At most, it would be willing to stash away its arms in the South Lebanon sector, said Yadlin. So it's important to note that Hezbollah has used more weapons provided by Syria than by Iran. While Iran provided training and funding, Yadlin said it was Syrian supplies that were enabling Hezbollah forces to remain active. It was pointed out by Major General Yadlin that Hezbollah is gaining support in Lebanon by rehabilitating areas damaged during the war, and they're trying to win favor of the local people there. They're actually using a three-pronged approach: repairing infrastructure used to smuggle weapons. They're rebuilding the Shiite neighborhoods by compensating nearly 5,000 homeowners with $12,000 each, and they're activating their public relations team to polish their reputation. It's amazing that they're doing that only for the Shiites, not for the Sunnis. No, it's not amazing. What religion in the world kills its own members? It'd be like Reformed Jews killing conservative Jews, or conservative Jews killing Orthodox Jews, or in Christianity it'd be like Baptists murdering thousands of Methodists, and Methodists murdering Catholics, and Catholics murdering Pentecostals. And so you see that Islam is a false religion. It was started 700 years after Christ. Remember, we mentioned last week that we know that we're living in the last days of planet Earth because of the following Bible prophecies being fulfilled now. Hundreds of Jews immigrating to Israel every week from around the world after being scattered among the nations for over 2,000 years. The European Union, the European Common Market, and the League of Arab Nations are operating. A union of 10 will finally form from them. One will be the anti-Messiah, the false Christ. God's Spirit is being poured out on all ethnic groups, with thousands of people meeting the Messiah, Jesus, every day. Russia is planning a coalition with Iran that will subsequently involve 2 northeastern African empires to capture the chemical and mineral riches of Israel. And the signs of the last days, which Jesus, the Messiah, foretold, are all happening now. These specific signs are described as follows: false messiahs, false prophets. Number 2, wars and ethnic groups, people fighting against each other. Look at the Sunnis fighting against the Shiites, ethnic group against ethnic group. Number 3, famines. Number 4, diseases. Number 5, earthquakes. Just do a little research on AIDS alone. That'll shock you. Look at just in the African nations of Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Botswana, as well as other countries. And you'll see, even in India, you see that's just one tip of the iceberg. You see the increasing amount of diseases in the earth, not to mention Ebola and other diseases. I recommend a book to you called Demon in the Freezer, and it's been out about 4 years now. It's non-fiction and a lot of good facts in there. You won't be able to put it down. That's Demon in the Freezer. Earthquakes is the 5th sign. sign that Yeshua mentioned. And I just want to touch a couple of those things. False prophets and false messiahs. The purpose of a false prophet is to draw attention away from the real Messiah. There's many false prophets who've been used by Satan in the past centuries. The Apostle John, writing in the New Testament in the Hebrew Brit Hadashah, said that the spirit of anti-Messiah was already in the world in the first century. That same spirit uses demons that operate today through false prophets that they claim to be prophets of God. And in the final days of planet Earth, there will be one who is energized by Satan. He will be the false prophet that will draw people to worship the coming world leader that will come about from either the European Common Market or the League of Arab Nations or a combination of both. And this world leader will be chosen by the 10-nation union that will form from those groups, or a combination of either. Many Muslim groups and many self-proclaimed prophets try to repackage the prophecies and signs that Jesus gave. Jesus gave those 700 years before the religion of Islam ever started by the false prophet Muhammad. And the different religions do this to assert, and especially Islam, to assert that the non-entity false god they worship, called Allah, is judging people. This is a tactic of Satan to draw people's attention away from the signs of the end times and the soon return of the Messiah of Israel, Yeshua HaMashiach. So many will claim to be the Messiah, but don't be fooled. The Messiah will not be here or there or in the desert as a teacher. When Messiah comes the second time, he will appear quickly as lightning, unannounced, and as a thief in the night, unexpected. And make sure you know the Messiah, the Yeshua HaMashiach. Make sure you're ready. You pray and invite him into your life today. While you're doing that, ask him to guide you in your investments. In these days, we need to be very wise in our investments. The bottom could drop out at any time in a number of things you're invested in. So you need to listen to the Holy Spirit, the Ruach Elohim, and do what he tells you and be very flexible. And as well as being flexible, you need to be able to respond instantly in the economy today. That's why we have this show, to help you out there. Let's talk about some of the other countries in the news now, and some that are not being covered by the news. By the way, China's parliament last Sunday enacted an updated bankruptcy law that explicitly covers private businesses for the first time. And it's amazing, with free trade and capitalism, that now they're going to allow bankruptcy. Quite an interesting statement or sign right there. By the way, talking about China, let's get into something that the news is not covering. Why is it the major news media, even the minor news media, never cover the real things that are happening? That's one purpose of this show, to give you the real news. In China, a new house church of 10,000 people was raided, and you say, well, how can you get 10,000 in a house? That's because they live in different homes and meet secretly a lot of times, sometimes openly. The real church is not the Three Self Church, the one that's sponsored by the government. The real church is underground. Millions are in that church, and they're greatly persecuted. A new house church of 10,000 people was raided and destroyed by several thousand police. That was on August 2nd. You didn't read this in the news, did you? Actually, on July 19th, while 10,000 Christians were praying in the church, and they were meeting either in a building or outside, I'm not sure where, it was in Chiluan Village, Dangston Town, in Zhoushan District in Hangzhou City, Zhejiang Province. Several thousand anti-riot police, military police, and government workers converged on the building in 300 military vehicles. According to eyewitnesses, China Aid Association reports there were several hundred Christians beaten, while many attempting to protect the church were arrested before the destruction of the building began at 2:30 in the afternoon. And so you see, a lot of this never is covered by the media, and our government never brings it up. I wonder why Condoleezza Rice never actually confronts the Chinese or some of the people in the other countries. Is it because of political correctness? And look at this. I'm going to tell you how to get a hold of these people. I'm going to tell you how to write the Chinese authorities, or I'll give you their phone number. You can write or call Ambassador Zhu Wenzhong. That's ZhouWenzhong. He's with the Embassy of the People's Republic of China. His address is 2300 Connecticut Avenue Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20008. And if you want to telephone him, his number is 202-745-6743. And the Director of Religious Affairs is 202, that's the phone number, 202-328-2512. So just a little news that's not seen or heard by the media. By the way, I'll give you the General Secretary of Zhejiang Province. Shengfulu. That's SHENGFULU. 3 different words. And his telephone is area code 86-571-705-2463. By the way, talking about Iran, remember what I told you in the last podcast about Russia having secret plans to militarily combine with Iran and 2 northeastern empires in Africa to come against Israel? Day after they inaugurated a heavy water plant that could be used to produce plutonium, Iran test-fired a sub-to-surface missile in the Persian Gulf, and that missile was fired on Sunday during large-scale military exercises, and their state-run TV reported that. This is Prince Handley. I have some confidential news for you on a terror alert. This is confidential. You won't hear this anywhere, and you want to notify your friend. I'm going to tell you where the terrorists will try to strike next in the United States of America. 3 locations, 3 cities. I'm going to give you the exact locations. Number 1 is Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota, on the juncture of Highway 77 and 494. There are around 400 stores there with 12,000 people usually congregating there. It's only 5 minutes from the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, 15 minutes from downtown St. Paul, Minnesota, and Minneapolis, the Twin Cities. Number 2, Chicago. It's going to be on the either IC or the elevated or the subway, on the trains in the Randolph Street Station or near there in the Loop in downtown Chicago. Number 3, San Francisco on the BART. The underwater passage connects San Francisco with the East Bay, and they will take the route from Oakland to San Francisco and somewhere in there between West Oakland to the Embarcadero. So there's 3 locations: the Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota, near the Twin Cities; Chicago, near the Randolph Street Station, and one of the trains there, the IC elevator, the subway; San Francisco, the BART, on the passage underwater between West Oakland and the Embarcadero. Remember where you heard this. Prince Handley. This is Podcast Satellite. Go with God, my friend. Jesus loves you, and I do too. This is Prince Handley with 100,000 watts of pure love.